Hi everybody, welcome to our webinar, Automating eProcurement and Purchase Requisitions in Dynamics GP. RecLogic delivers powerful browser-based functionality to drive eProcurement, requisitions, invoices, expense reports, and time tracking throughout your business, powering efficiency and controlling costs. Sue Hilko with RecLogic will show you how to control spending, eliminate lost documents and streamline your approval process, provide for remote receiving at a reduced cost, and seamlessly match your vendor invoices to purchase orders. This functionality is provided with full integration into your Dynamics GP system, and all data will be validated against the GP tables at time of entry for seamless integration. Please submit any questions throughout the session, and we will address as many as time allows towards the end of the webinar. I will now hand it over to Sue.
Thanks, Kayla. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to take a look at RecLogic today. So I have a few slides for you, and then we'll go right into the product demonstration. So what is RecLogic? Well, as Kayla mentioned, RecLogic is an end-to-end e-procurement system providing powerful automation and workflow. And of course, our ultimate goal here is your ultimate goal, which is reduce costs and increase the value of your purchase. So RecLogic, from a 30,000-foot view, is a mature product with over 600 active customers globally. Those are customers on our annual enhancement plan. We were initially released in 2001. And we're a browser-based e-procurement system providing, as Kayla mentioned, real-time integration into Dynamics GP and SL. So today we'll focus on GP, and that real-time integration means that we are reading and validating against your tables in GP. So that would be your chart of accounts, your vendor, your inventory items if applicable, and so on. And then when the purchase order is actually created at the end of the process, it is automatically written into your Dynamics GP system. So our system is comprised of these four different segments: requisitions, invoicing, expenses, and timesheets. Today, due to time limitation, I will focus on the eProcurement requisition through invoicing process. If you would like to see additional functionality of expense and or time entry, you can definitely contact Turnkey, let Kayla know, and we can set up a personal demo of those things. So what are some common issues that we address with customers? No vision into the status of documents in the approval process. This is typically if it's a paper-based system that you're currently on. Many companies are passing around documents, requisitions for approval in Excel, via email. The emails are lost, people don't have access, and they have no vision as to where they are. And the downside of that is components that are important are not getting ordered, and you're also missing communication with your vendors are missing. So no control over items ordered. That's the second one. People are just purchasing whatever they feel like. A hospital the other day said to me, we don't want people buying those $75 pens. You want to restrict them as to what it is that they're purchasing to keep your costs under control. Too much paper. Difficulty finding related documents. We have file cabinets after file cabinet, and then storage documents of paper documents. And sometimes, especially when the auditors come in and they want to see a copy of a document that's related to whatever it is they're looking at, you have to go search for it. In the RecLogic system, you can attach those documents. We have unlimited attachments, which creates ease in finding those documents. No direct integration with your ERP, your projects, or some other products if you have any other add-on products. And usually, and what that means to you is lots of times People are double and triple entering. So you enter into one system, or you have an Excel spreadsheet, and then you have to manually enter that into the ERP system, and then sometimes into a project system. So we want to try to eliminate all that duplicate entry for you. Too much time spent editing and correcting GL accounts. Oftentimes people are coding to the wrong account, and then the payables department is tasked with editing, doing a lot of correcting journal entries, and wasting a lot of time that could be spent on other analysis or things that would be much more beneficial. Entry screens are too busy and filled with useless fields. Sometimes we find that these off-the-shelf products try to give us everything that we could possibly want, and what that means is our screens become so cluttered that they're confusing for your users to enter information. So we'll address all of those things throughout the presentation, and as I mentioned before, I will take you from a requisition to a purchase order to receiving, and then lastly to the invoice. So with that, we'll leave the PowerPoint presentation for now, and we'll open up RecLogic. So this is the login screen of RecLogic, and today I will be Rex Baker, who is the requester in my demo system. So I'm logging in as Rex into my GP database. So I just logged in. Let me go do that again. Okay, now I am logged in as Rex Baker into my GP database. So up in the upper right-hand corner over here, we have 5 quick entry items, and those are for functionality that you would use on a frequent basis. And each user can define their own quick entry button. So instead of having to go to the drop down and select what it is to do, you could just have a quick entry button. You can add 2 KPIs to your home page, and those are by user as well. You can get back to this home page at any time by clicking on the logo in the upper left-hand corner, and of course this logo can be changed to your logo as well. And in the center of the screen here is what's most important. This is your recent transactions. So anything that you have recently done in the system will provide a snapshot for you, including the number, the description, the total amount of the document, what is the status on that document, and the last time anybody updated it. So the first thing we'll do in our eProcurement process is create a new requisition. So this is what is known as the header portion of the requisition. User-defined fields are denoted by the red line at the left of the field. There are 5 user-defined fields here, but you'll note 4 of them default in from different setup areas. So we will go enter in a description, and we'll purchase some supplies for the sales department. Once I type in the description, I am ready to enter my line items. Now, a couple things to point out here in the header. When we designed RecLogic, we designed it so that it could be adapted to your business processes. And we have several different things that we have added to our software to provide you the capability to do that. And I'll try to point those out as we go through the demo. So one of those is user-defined fields. We have a total of 24 user-defined fields which can be added to the documents. So 10 of those user-defined fields can be added into the header portion of the document. This is an example of a user-defined field here, and I'll show you another one when we get down to the line item portion. we have 3 notes. Why 3 notes? Because each of these notes denotes a different type of note. So we have general notes, which stay here with the requisition. We have notes to vendor, which are passed over to Dynamics GP. And we have notes to purchasing, which will go along with this, and only the purchasing department or the purchasing agent, if you have one in your company, will be able to see those notes. Then we also have unlimited attachments, and you'll see this same capability along with each line item. So once we have our header portion filled in, and you can hide fields as well as add fields, and you can also make fields required that are not currently required, which is another way that we allow you to adapt our software to your business processes. So now we'll go down to the line items section, and I will click to add a line to the requisition. Now anywhere you see a drill down, the little looking glass, if you have GP implemented, that will look familiar to you. It's a drill down into either the GP tables, the RecLogic tables, or in the case of item, it's a drill down into both. The little star denotes your favorites. So if I click on the looking glass, I am actually drilling into the GP inventory files. Anyone that's highlighted in green is one of my favorites. To add another item to my favorites, I would simply click the star next to the item and it will add to my favorites. Now anything that says inventory here is an inventory item as tracked in your GP inventory tables. If you're not using GP inventory, or you're going to use expense capability of RecLogic, or you want to augment your GP inventory with items that you may purchase but you don't keep inventory on, then RecLogic has its own catalog. So when I double clicked it, it showed me the RecLogic catalog. So let's say that we're going to order a chair mat for our supplies. The benefit of setting up items in the RecLogic catalog or GP inventory is that you can then default in certain fields. So I can default in vendor, I can default in my chart of account, and I can default in a unit and a price and so on. So let's say we're purchasing 4 of these. Now, I mentioned adapting again to your business processes. The reason we only have 3 required fields on this screen, which are description, required by, and quantity, is because some companies don't want their requesters to have a screen cluttered full of fields that they don't need to see. The requester often doesn't know the GL account, doesn't know who it will be purchased from, and may not even know the item ID. So you can hide all of these fields, except for the 3, of course, that are required for the requester to complete. Now, as the requisition flows through the process of approval and eventually to the purchasing agent, if you so desire, there are various other required fields, because obviously I can't cut a purchase order if I don't have a vendor to cut that purchase order against. So in the line items section of the requisition, I can add another 14 user-defined fields. Now, here is an example of a user-defined field. The other day I demoed for a company that wanted a priority field added to the line item. Now, it's not just a user-defined field, but it's a dimension field. And the difference between a regular free-form user-defined field and a dimension user-defined field is you can put a table behind it. So I if you choose, they wanted to choose low, normal, or high priority, and then route according to that user-defined field. So that's where I put this particular user-defined field in here and set these different priorities for them to select from. Now I could also make this a required field, and then that would force them to put a selection in here. And then also note that I put it in a color so that it would stand out and people would notice what the priority was here. In the bottom, we have those same 3 notes, and I'm going to just add a note here that tells you that this note, passes over to GP. As I click too fast. Whoops, doesn't want to open for me. All right, let's add an attachment. Being stubborn. Let's save it, and we'll edit it. Now before I go back and I edit it, let me denote here for you this little budget inquiry. Now the status, if you notice, if I hover over them, they tell me the different, the pop-up will come up. So this says not submitted. That means I haven't submitted this requisition for approval yet, and this is my budget inquiry. Oh, now my attachment pops up. So here is my budget inquiry window, and this will compare to the GP encumbrance budget. So if you are tracking budgeting in the GP encumbrance budget, you will be able to see where you are in that budget. Now this line item will not be added to the committed column, and this committed column is unique to RecLogic. You can see it here within RecLogic, but GP does not show the committed amount. So once I submit this requisition for approval, it will move this amount into the committed column. Then when a purchase order is created, it will move it out of the committed column and it will move it into the actual column. So you will know at all times where you are in comparison to budget. Now, if you were using GP projects, I don't have them exposed in my demo today, but you would be able to also add it to a project as well as to a cost category within that project, and then you would have visibility to the project budget from this screen as well. There would be an additional item up here that says View Project Budget. In addition to that, we have unlimited budgets you can add in RecLogic as well, and they're also viewable from this window. So notice here too that you can copy to a new line, and if we open it up to edit it again, if you do use the capability in GP to distribute a line to multiple accounts, so say for instance you're purchasing copy paper, and that copy paper would be allocated across several different departments within your company, you could then allocate that to different GL accounts based upon amount or percent. And of course, it would need to add up to either 100% or 100% of the dollar amount, similar to the way it does within GP. So that's accessed by this little GL distribution symbol at the top of the GL account. So let me try one more time because I'm stubborn. Notes to vendor. So I'm just going to type that this note passes to GP. And then when I finish this, you'll see that the note has gone over. And as far as attachments are concerned, I just need a name for the attachment. And then I need to have that attachment, of course, located somewhere on the network for me to attach. And I can upload it. And then when I open up this document again, you'll note that I have an attachment and I have the little line similar to GP to note that there is a note and an attachment. So I can save this or save and add a line. So another functionality that's quite frequently used in RecLogic is what's known as Punchout. Punchout is the capability for you to go out to a website and purchase an item from that website. Now, normally the bridge doesn't connect people to the entire website. Normally there's a section maybe of that website of items that you would allow them to purchase from. You may have contracted special pricing. So I'll click the little shopping cart. I am now going out to CDW's website, and I'm going to say that I want to purchase a Surface Pro. And then I will select that, and it will give me back some options. I'll add one to my cart. And then if I go down to the bottom here, once I filled my cart with everything I want to purchase, similar to when you're shopping on any website, I'm ready to check out, but I'm not going to give them my credit card. I'm going to transfer my shopping cart. And what happens when I do that is that the item goes back into my requisition, and here it is. It's filled in everything for me. The quantity I purchased, the vendor part number, the vendor name, the description, and the default GL account associated with that. So those are my two line items. So now let's say that my requisition is complete. I've added all the line items that I wanted. Now it's ready to be submitted. So I'll click the submit button. And what happens now is the requisition is going into the approval process. So now I have two important tabs, and it says your document has been successfully submitted. So we go down to the routing tab, and that tells me where my document is going. And that is based upon the routing policy that you have defined. So it's going to Andy Hobbs, William Kane, and then Barb Jones. The status tab will provide you with a complete audit trail. So now no more guessing. Where is it? Who has it for approval? What's happening with it? It's been routed to Andy Hobbs, the first approval in my approval process. So down here, I have Andy's Outlook box. So if I open up Andy's Outlook box, here is the document that just came in. An email was sent to Andy Hobbs, and it says, Rex Baker has entered a requisition for your approval. So here's the document. I have a hot link. You can also set up a code and just reply to this email with approve or reject, and approve it right from your email if it's something simple and you don't need to make any comments on it. That's the first way. The second way you can approve it is via a mobile device or a tablet. And I will log into this system as Andy Hobbs. And once I log into the system, you'll see he has his review queue. He can also look at his recent transactions. You do have the capability to enter expenses and or time via your mobile device as well. But right now we're focusing on his review queue. Here's the requisition I just entered. He can add a comment, he can approve, or he can reject via his mobile device. And then, of course, the final way to approve or reject is to log into the system as Andy Hobbs into the browser-based full system of RecLogic. Now you'll notice Andy's homepage is a little bit different. He has different icons, he has different KPIs, and he has an approval queue, which I can collapse, and a recent transaction queue, because Andy is an approver and Rex was not. So here's the requisition we just entered. And here is your additional options from within the system. I can type a comment. I can also send a question. I would type my question in the box. I would select the person from the lookup that I want to send the question to. These are all the users of your system. Send the question. The person I chose would get an email saying you have a question regarding this requisition. There'll be a hot button. They'll click it. They'll type their answer in the box. There'll be a respond button. Both the questions and the answers will all be tracked on the status tab. I have the capability to delegate this to anyone else in the system. I also have an out-of-office feature, which will allow me to designate time when I will not be available, similar to your Outlook out-of-office, and send it to another user from a certain date to a certain date, and each user will specify who they'd like it to go to. So once he is satisfied, he can edit those lines. He can look at the budget. He has full access to it, and of course that's based on his rights. If he wants to reject the line, he simply unchecks the box. And once he's happy everything looks good, he marks the review complete, and it is stamped. Now, just briefly, I'll show you the routing policy of why it went where it went. So here is my corporate requisitions, and you note I had a long list of routing policies. You can have unlimited routing policies. This is some defaults you can set for it, and this is why it routed to Andy Hobbs. Andy Hobbs is Rex Baker's manager as outlined in his user setup. So if it's over Rex's limit, it goes to Andy. If there's an IT item on it, so an item with a class ID of IT, it goes to William Kane, because William Kane is the IT manager and he wants to know when something's hitting his budget. If it did have a project on it, it could go to the project manager as defined in your project setup. If it's over a certain amount, it goes to a table, and so on and so forth. Budget owner. Now also note that you get an FYI. You can get an FYI. You don't need to, so you could just get an email, FYI, hey, this line is over budget. You don't need to be added to the approval queue. It can go to a group. It can go to a table. It's pretty much, it doesn't have to be on amount. As this line is over, if it's over 5K, and our routing is probably the most flexible routing in the industry. So we'll go back to the requisition, and I'll log out of here as Andy, and I'll log in as William Kane. Now William can approve from email, and he can approve from his mobile device as well. Now this is William's queue. He doesn't have any KPIs. So here's that requisition. Now note that William approved only items that had a class ID of IT. So William doesn't have a checkbox next to the desk mat because that's not an IT item. So he can approve or he can uncheck and not approve. So now my review is completed. Now, as the last step of your requisition, if you have a smaller company or you don't have a purchasing department, you can say upon final approval, automatically create a purchase order. You can do it for certain types of orders under $25 that you don't want to be bothered with going through an approval process or anything like that. Or as in the case of our demo system. Now I've logged back in as Rex Baker, and I'm opening up that requisition, and I'm going to the status tab to show you that it is now date and time stamped with Andy's approval, William's approval, and the routing has now been routed to Bob Jones. And if I look at this routing tab, so let's just quickly go here, log out, log in as Barb. And you also have the capability of a quick approval. So I'm just going to use my quick approval so we can get through the demo and have time for some questions. And then I will log out, put on my Rex Baker hat. Sorry, I forgot to turn my email off. And we can take a look at this now. And if we go to the routing tab, we'll see that it was routed to Bob Jones, and the status tab will denote that all the approvers have approved it, and it's gone to Fred Beyer. Fred Beyer is my purchasing agent. It can be routed to a department, there can be a queue, there's a number of different ways you can do that. Now my system, demo system, is not set up to auto create a PO, so it is going to the purchasing agent. So I'm now logging in as Fred Beyer. And Fred Beyer is going to go to something we call the buyer review queue. So I'm opening up his buyer review queue, and you'll see here he has some different criteria that he can filter on. The most common that people filter on is the item ID, the vendor, and sometimes the requester. And the reason they do vendor is because they have discount purchasing levels with certain vendors, and they may have it on an item or they may have it on a vendor. And then you note down here it says generate 1 PO per vendor and 1 PO per site. So I'm going to just open up all the open purchase orders without a filter, and it will show me everything. So here's the last one we just did. And you'll note that if there had been something missing that would stop it from creating a PO, you'd have a little red mark over here. When you hover over it, it would tell you exactly what was missing. Your purchasing agent does have edit capability if you allow them to, so GL accounts or vendors or other fields could be changed at this time. They have access to notes. They can add notes. They can also see any attachment that's on it. If you are using GP inventory and you did have stock on this, that would be indicated right here with another symbol that would say availability, and it would show you the sites where they were available. You would hover over here to fulfill from inventory. You can fulfill all of it or partial from inventory. It will be deducted from the amount that you can create the PO from, or the PO capability will be completely erased if you're fulfilling the whole thing from inventory. You check the boxes when you're ready to create the purchase orders. Select generate 1 for PO, and you create the purchase orders. So the purchase orders are creating at this point in time, and we are hopefully generating a purchase order. So here we go. Advanced PO 2343, CDW 2344. I can print them. I can email them. And in the case of my punch-out vendor, I can send via CXML. So now, if I had done one of those things, either printed or sent it, it would have stamped it on the status tab as well that it had been sent out. I want to just take a moment and show you the integration with GP. This is the purchase order entry screen of Dynamics GP. If I do a lookup here, and I go down to the bottom, you'll see the two POs, 2343 and 2344. These are the ones that were just created out of RecLogic. And you'll note here is the little note. This note passes to GP, passed from RecLogic to GP. And we have an additional information. We have a RecLogic attachments here under the additional information that we've added. And it shows you any attachments. And those attachments can be sent along with the POs. And we have a copy of the status tab. So if you're in Dynamics GP and you're the AP person, the same thing appears on the vouchers. You can see exactly who approved this, when they approved it, and it's just a replica of the status tab. So I'll close this. So now I've taken you through the requisition, the approval process, and we've gone to the buyer. So we're going to log out of the system as the buyer. And one more time, I'm going to put my Rex Baker hat on. And I am going to receive. So I go down to the receiving functionality, and excuse me, I have filters again. Now I'm the receiver, and the benefit of using RecLogic receiving, you can also use GP receiving, and the information will be passed back to the status tab of RecLogic. The benefit of using RecLogic receiving is that RecLogic licenses are much less expensive than GP licenses for just a receiver, and number two, they can receive via a browser on the loading dock without having to log into the GP system. So they can select by vendor, by purchase order, and so on, and filter it again. I'll just select everything that's out there, and if we go down to the bottom, you will see that these are the two items, the Microsoft Surface and the plastic mat under the chair. Now, whether it's an inventory item or a non-inventory item, many companies do want to know that the actual items were received, even though they're not inventory items in GP, because they want to know that before they pay them. So I will save it, and a receipt will be created. There we go, process completed. So now a receipt has been created in GP, and that receipt, once it is posted, will be on the status tab, and I think I got a warning mode notice, so I'm not sure that the receipt, it looked like the, let me go back, grab the requisition. Okay, sorry. The receipt will be marked here on the receipt tab. Once it's posted, it will be on the status tab as well. So here are the two receipts. Now when we create these in Dynamics GP, they're unposted batches and they need to be posted. So I will go over, so now it's received, the purchase order. Next step in the process, let's match it to the invoice. Two types of invoices, they look the same. I'm going to show you the PO invoice entry. I'm going to create. Notice that once you learn one of the screens in RecLogic, there you're going to see a similarity throughout. We have a description. Let's just type supplies for, and we have a vendor. I have an invoice in my hand, so I know which vendor it was received from. I have an invoice number to enter, and now, is it a match to PO or a match to receipt? Is it two-way, three-way matching? If I've received it and that receipt has been posted to GP, I'm going to match to receipt. That will alert me that a receipt has already been created in GP, and I'm just creating a voucher. If I want to match to PO, I assume I have not received it in, and it creates a voucher and a receipt at the same time. So all of my required fields are now entered. Once I save this document, I will get additional pop-up down here. This is for our new OCR capability. The one we're focusing on here is for PO number. So this is giving me a listing of my PO numbers. I'm going to pick that PO. Does this, sorry about this. I'm going to pick a PO to match this to. And then I'm going to fill in the lines. The lines will automatically fill in from the PO. So here is a PO that and now I don't need to re-enter in the lines because these are the lines that were created in the requisition that then became the PO. So I have a phone hands-free dual. Now, if this amount matches the amount on your invoice, then you're good to go. But if you needed to change anything, you could edit it. If you needed to add an additional line, let's say freight, then you can type in freight, if I spelled it correctly. And you could add in the amount that the freight was. So freight was $10.91. And we'll save that. I have the same note capability here, and the voucher notes will pass over to GP. I save it. Now my invoice amount matches my invoice over here, and I submit it for approval. Now, it will probably have a different approval. Some people don't have an approval when it's a PO invoice because they figure they have a simple approval process. In mine, it'll look very similar. All documents go to Andy. That's just the way my requisition is set up. Some people don't have an approval process or a sophisticated one because they figure out the purchase order's already gone through full approval. I don't really need to, to send it through a full approval again. So we also have search and duplicate, which allows you to search and duplicate any prior requisition, invoice, or expense. So if I go to requisition, search and duplicate, you'll see, again, I can filter. So this functionality would be used for templating. So if you have a monthly order or a regular order that you put in consistently, you would set up a template for that order. You would probably give it a name or you know a vendor that it would be purchased from. Usually I give it a description that denotes that I want to pull that up. And then once again, I apply the filter. It gives me back all prior requisitions or invoices or expense reports that meet the criteria that I have selected. And this is a listing of all the previous requisitions that I have entered. So, and it tells you the status. Here I can copy the whole document, or I can copy just one line item from the document. So if I just want business cards, then I can just copy business cards. I can go down to another one and I can add some RAM from here just for argument's sake. So I can copy the whole thing, or I can copy individual lines. And once I'm done, I go back to the requisition entry screen. Now, if I had copied the whole thing, you would see a new requisition here with those lines. I just copied individual items, so I have to create a new requisition. And then when I save it, I'll get a little pop-up down here. And that pop-up will say paste from clipboard. And it says I have 2 lines that I selected. Do I want to add them? And it automatically adds them. Saves me some time of entering things that I might order, consistently. I didn't mention before, but you can do blanket requisition if your company uses blanket requisitions. And we're just coming up on 10 minutes to the hour, and I do want to leave some time for questions. So I will turn it back to Kayla and see if we have any questions.
Yes, we do have a few questions submitted. So this one says, we have RecLogic version 9. How do you gather the graph on your home page?
The KPIs? The graph on the home page is under Preferences, and it's down here. Select 6 KPIs. They have to be set up in your system, and then once they're set up, you would select which one of the ones that have been set up in the system you would like to see on your home page. So if they're set up, this is where you would see them.
Okay, and then can we have 2 number ranges, one for requisition and one for invoice?
Absolutely. The requisition number is auto-assigned. You choose the starting number. The invoice number is a number, is numbered differently. It has its own series of numbers. And then, of course, you're typing in the actual number of the invoice.
And what about an error when you exceed your budget, not only a warning?
You decide what you want to do in your routing policy. So if you say stop processing when I exceed budget, then it will not go any further. If it's a RecLogic budget, I can say, you can't even enter it if it's over budget. But if it's a GP budget or a project budget, then those need to be handled through the routing.
And what about a comment plus approve at the same time?
A comment plus approve. In the approval screen, I can add I can't show the approval because I don't think I have one, but in the approval screen, I can add a comment, but I still need to go up top and approve it. It's not in that same area. I can change the mine said review completed. I can change that to a big colored button that says approve, but I cannot move that approve button down into the comment area.
Can you roll out RecLogic in stages so some parts of the company are using it, but there are still buyers direct entering POs in GP?
Yes, you can.
And how can I add an attachment from the requisition to the PO in additional info? Is this the standard?
Yes, you can. There is a little button when you're creating the PO or a little checkbox that says include attachments with PO. And if that box is checked, then the attachment goes along with the PO.
And how can I delete an attachment from a receipt?
Delete attachment from a receipt. Delete an attachment from a receipt. I don't know if you can delete an attachment from a receipt. I will gladly check that and get back to you, Kayla, and you can forward that answer.
Okay. I'll make a note of that. And do you have any email templates for invoice?
Email templates for invoice. We have, well, I obviously have one in my system. I would say we probably do. Is that an existing user? I would contact our support and see if they can provide you with a template.
Can individual requisitioners see whether someone has delegation set on so they know where to call to chase an approval?
Well, if it's delegated, rather than, it will show on the status tab who it was delegated to. So they would not, they would know automatically who the delegation was to by looking on the status tab of the requisition.
Are there any RecLogic user groups for networking and best practice sharing?
No, unfortunately at this time there are not.
Can I see requisitions of 2 departments only?
Yes. Well, you can see requisitions. You can see requisitions for 1 department. It would be a customization to see departments. Out of the box, you cannot see more than 1. It's 1 department or all. You can see requisitions out of the box, 1 department or all. For to see only 2 departments, we might be able to set it up as a group and otherwise it would be a customization to do that.
It looks like that's all the questions. Submit. Oh, I think we may have one just came in. No, I think that was it. That was all the questions that we had submitted. And we still made some good time. So I think that's a good time to wrap it up. So that's all the time we have today. If you have any additional questions or maybe your question was not addressed or if you'd even like to watch the recording, please contact your account manager or Michelle Geeby at 636-237-2261. Thanks for joining us and we'll see you next time.